I never forget the starchy smell of that hospital corridor, old linoleum somewhere between beige and bile, mingled with the plastic of chairs and faint whiffs of antiseptics that never hid the truth, decay, despair, and the raw ache of fear. That morning, the city beyond the glass doors stood still, thunderclouds wrapping the skyline in a grey silence that even the Joburg taxis respected, but inside, everything burned. I was pressed against the wall of the surgical ward, hands balled up because I'd made a mistake and everyone else wanted me to know it. "What did you expect, Musa?" My uncle's voice echoed down the corridor, thick and sour, kept low because of the sick, but slicing all the same. He wore a faded tracksuit, hands heavy from years working the mines, face creased by both time and anger. His words bounced between the walls, heavier with every pass. My mother, paper pale, barely raised her head from her hands. "This is not the time," she murmured. "No, this is exactly the time," my uncle pressed on, gesturing at me as if I'd brought the entire situation to life. He eyed my chef's whites, a cheap set bought second-hand, now stained and wrinkled from a sleepless week. "He leaves us to chase, what, baking bread, styling salads for rich people." My cousin drifted nearby, twisting her hospital wristband, eyes fixed on the floor. My father was behind the surgery doors, fighting for his leg after a taxi clipped him outside Hillbrow Market. Everyone waited for the news, everyone waited for me to make sense, but I said nothing, jaw clenched, not because I lacked words, but because mine never counted here. My dream, running a restaurant, was always the family punchline. "Chef Musa," they'd say, mocking with accents, holding up their hands as if balancing invisible silver trays. "When you're cooking for the president, we'll come, eh?" Now the silence before the surgeon arrived was thick. I wasn't a doctor or lawyer. Not an engineer or a proud son gone off to mine gold in Australia. I cooked for 20 rands an hour, sometimes less, in a catering kitchen that steamed with hard sweat and sour oil. I didn't belong at my father's sickbed, they believed, but I stayed, biting back retorts, fighting the urge to fight for something so tired it felt like bruising myself against concrete. When the surgeon finally came, nobody looked to me for hope or answers. Even in that moment, watching my mother collapse into prayer, my uncle pull his cap low, my cousin's tears, I realized they believed I had already failed. That was the start. In the weeks that followed, I barely left the hospital, moving between ICU and our cramped flat, trying to help my father learn to walk again, trying to ignore their looks. Every night after dinner, they all watched the news or sat out on the veranda, talking about jobs, money, and the son who'd lost his mind. I'd withdraw to the kitchen, boiling water for tea, making stews or pap, cleaning quietly. Nights were spent with my phone, scrolling Instagram, breath caught by shots of perfect eclairs, tiny, glossy cakes from Paris, all gold leaf and color, and dreaming, always through glass, always unreachable. But sometimes, in early hours when the city lights glimmered, I'd imagine my own counter, the warm, sugary air, the clatter and chatter, working dough with someone who believed in me. That image kept me standing straight, even while everything else bent me double. 6 months after the accident, my father came home with a steel brace and haunted eyes. His only words to me day after day: "Are you still dreaming, Musa?" I always said yes, voice steady. Maybe he thought I was too stubborn, too foolish to be part of their world. Eventually, the pressure boiled over. One Sunday, after a family lunch, my uncle cornered me with a beer in hand, voice slurred and loud. "You think you're better than us now, hey, with your little chef coats and pizza flyers?" He waved one of my business cards, an attempt at catering gigs. "Go then, starve for your art, let's see, come back when you're ready to work for real people." Friends drifted away, even my sister, younger by 4 years, stopped inviting me out. "I don't know what you're expecting, Musa," she said quietly. "We can't all be French." So I left 2 weeks later. I packed my knives in a backpack, borrowed taxi fare from my cousin, and pledged to find a job anywhere, anywhere that would let me chop, mix, taste. I found the first kitchen off Commissioner Street, under the ironwork of old mining buildings. It was a hole in the wall, sweaty and loud, run by a Botswana woman with a sharp tongue and the quickest hands I've ever seen. I worked for near nothing, prepping onions, peeling endless potatoes, slapping meat on grills, days blurred with the heat and hunger. I learned to move like water, slipping from stove to sink, dodging elbows, eyes always watching. I called home less and less. The times I went back, my uncle's eyes followed me, silently scoring each movement. My mother tried sometimes, but I could see the bone-tired doubt burrowing deeper. But Johannesburg has a way of turning even stones into bread, if you know where to dig. Over the next 3 years, I took every kitchen job that would have me: pasta shops in Rosebank, Indian takeaways in Fordsburg, a 3-month Sunday carvery in Melville. Each place chewed me up and spat me back out stronger, harder. I learned sauces at 2 a.m., sweated through dozens of chefs' jackets, burned my hands on caramel, and sharpened my knives until they gleamed like mirrors. I watched customers come and go, always out of reach. I memorized smiles and laughter, the easy satisfaction, and I wanted it more than air. One night, working a pastry shift at a high-end Santon restaurant, I piped chew pastry until my wrists ached. The head chef, a gruff Frenchman always in doubt of these African boys, hovered behind me. "Your eclair, why so small?" he asked, inspecting my tray. "They're lighter this way," I said nervously. "Crispier. More space for cream." He grunted, glared. That night he tried one. He closed his eyes just for a moment, then, "Extra tray tomorrow for the couverts." He looked me up and down, then walked away. That single nod, silent as it was, changed something. My hands shook so hard I nearly dropped a mixing bowl. Within 6 months I was running the pastry station. The Frenchman cursed less. The sous chefs started offering advice. One day a food blogger came in, her hair bright as mango skin. She snapped a picture of my mangrove honey tart, posted it online. "A taste of magic in Santon," she wrote. Suddenly reservations spiked. 3 tables, 4, 5, everyone wanted dessert. I saved every rand. Nights I worked on recipes, scribbling notes after my shifts beneath flickering kitchen lights. I kept a battered folder of ideas: cakes my grandmother used to bake, twists on coconut and guava, memories spun into foam and syrup. But the real shift came not from a kitchen, but from a chance. One late autumn I saw a sign, old iron letters peeling and half lost, "To let, 43B N Street." It was nothing, a squat shopfront, the windows boarded and spiderwebbed. The rent was so low I had to check twice. I called the number. 3 weeks later, standing in my own dust, clutching a rusty ring of keys, I realized this was it. Opening took all my strength. I worked mornings in Santon, scrubbed floors at N Street at night. Paint, fix wiring, buy cheap second-hand ovens. I poured everything in: money, sweat, prayers. I called it Lehae, home. My mother's word, said on nights she missed the village, longing for warmth. I baked until sunrise. I scrawled menus, set up Instagram, begged friends for help. At first, no one came. 4 days, then a week, then a month. A single old woman wanted ginger tea, nothing more, but I kept at it. I tweaked recipes. I added cooksisters and milk tart, played with flavors, offered free samples in Hillbrow. On weekends, I posted bright photos, slices of honeysuckle cake, sugar-dusted rolls, until one afternoon 2 young women came in asking for the bread from TikTok. They posted about it. A month later, queues snaked down N Street. Out of nowhere, people found me: foodies, office workers, curious uncles looking for something sweet after church. Local radio ran a story on a young chef baking hope. Then, a city magazine arrived for an interview. They printed a photo of me, apron on, flour on my cheeks. I printed 5 copies, posted one to my mother. But as the shop grew, so did my hunger for their approval, the ones who'd never believed. I wanted my family to taste, to see, to know, but I hesitated every time. I waited like a child, hoping someone would ring the bell and say, "Musa, we're proud." I didn't call, they didn't call me. 2 years in, the shop had doubled in size. I employed 4 staff, we baked for hotels and schools. I felt the change in my bones, but the hole in my chest pulsed harder with every pastry I sent out unshared. I began to think I'd never return, not really, until my cousin called one evening. My father was ill again, a chest infection, they said. Could I come? The hospital looked the same. The lights still flickered, the paint still peeled. My mother's face was older, her eyes ringed with worry. My uncle paced the corridor. I sat beside my father, now thinner, the lines on his face deeper, but his grip unexpectedly strong when he held my hand. His first words, between coughs: "They say you run a bakery." "A restaurant, Baba," I told him quietly. He smiled a little as if testing the words. "You feed many." "Some days, yes. We do well." He closed his eyes, nodded softly, but there was a peace, now a melting, subtle but real, and I felt tears start to sting. For the first time, he let his hand rest over mine. The next morning my mother asked, would I come for dinner Friday? The family needed a gathering. "Bring something," she said, "for them to see." I agreed, nervous as a schoolboy. On Friday, Johannesburg blazed gold. I woke early, baking through fear and memory. I chose 2 cakes, coconut malva with caramel and a tray of saffron rolls. I packed them in cardboard boxes, tying twine tightly. My hands shook. Fear whispered, what if they hated it? What if I came back just to fail again? Their flat hadn't changed. My uncle was first to greet me, arms crossed, staring at the box. My cousin hovered, almost shy. I carried the cakes to the kitchen, greeted my mother, who hugged me a little too long. The rest had already gathered, my sister, her friends, two neighbors. Dinner was noisy, words bouncing off walls. The tension in the room was thick as syrup. My uncle, always first and loudest, eyed the boxes. My mother cleared her throat. Musa brought one of his cakes, she said gently, from Lehae, his place. My uncle grunted, but watched as my mother carefully slid the cake onto a plate. The caramel oozed, just a little golden and warm. I'll cut, my mother said, as if slicing through old history. A hush fell as she nudged slices onto plates. The room waited, forks poised. My sister sniffed, delicate. My uncle frowned, finally taking a bite. At first nothing, then he looked at me, eyes sharp. It's soft, he said gruffly, pushing the plate to his wife for a taste. Maybe too sweet. My cousin leaned in. Let me try. Forks scraped gently, mouths moved. Suddenly one of the neighbors, usually never really seen, let out a soft, surprised aish. Eyes widened, a small, silent awe crept in. My sister, cheeks full, grinned at me. It's so light, she whispered, like home but new. Soon the slices vanished. My uncle, pretending not to care, cut himself another. Someone asked for coffee, someone else fought over the last roll. For just a moment, the room filled with a new kind of laughter, warm, true, hungry for more. After tea, as the sun slipped behind Hillbrow's high-rises, my uncle slumped next to me on the stoop outside. He looked at his hands, heavy and cracked, then at the city below. You really run that place, eh, Musa? His voice was soft in the growing dark. Yes, bread, cakes, everything, my own recipes. My own staff now. He nodded, silent, then met my eyes. My father, he did not believe in dreams either, made me work the mines, made me do what he never could, thought he was helping, hard life, not many get out. But you did, I see it. Something in my chest unclenched. Next Sunday, he said, bring more, bring the breads for church. The women, they must see what my nephew can do. I nodded, swallowing hard. Inside, my mother wrapped what was left in old newspaper, pressing it to my chest before I left. Musa, she said, we are proud. I walked home in the early dusk, starlings diving through purple sky, the city humming below. I felt both brittle and whole, as if the world had broken and healed me in the same gesture. And as the streetlights flickered, glowing over Johannesburg's winding tangle, I understood. The taste of home had finally changed. My proof wasn't in the cakes or the magazine covers or the clicking of cash registers downtown. It lived in those small, hesitant bites, in exclamations over a slice of caramel, in an uncle's softened voice, in my mother's tired but fierce hands. I had left hungry for their approval. I returned feeding them what I'd built from hunger, and it was enough, more than enough for any dream to rise and keep rising forever.